In this video, I want to share with you the 3 things that I've learned in reinventing myself, going from being a physiotherapist to running a very successful online community for men called Better Man to the work that I do today, which is that I'm an author, an executive coach, and a keynote speaker. I travel a lot. I speak at conferences and events, mostly on how to lead change and how to deal with change for yourself. This is obviously a very timely topic because in the years to come, many of us will have to reinvent ourselves, and hopefully, these lessons that I've learned can act as a mirror for you. This is all part of a series that I call Hotel Room Sessions, where I have more sort of informal chats with you as I'm traveling and sitting in different hotel rooms. Right now, I'm not in my hotel room, I'm actually in the lounge area for this hotel. It's a beautiful, sort of like rustic hotel, and I'm gearing up for my talk for tomorrow. So let's quickly talk about this. When I finished high school, I thought I wanted to be a physiotherapist. So I studied 4 years, I did my community service here, and then after that, went into working in the private sector. The dream that I always had was to run out as the physio for the Springboks. So to be very much involved in sports physiotherapy. But as it turned out, just through sort of how life was pushing me, I ended up working mostly in hospitals, at some point in a step down facility. And most of the patients that I saw were patients who were post surgery. So post knee and hip surgery, post hip and knee replacement, and then also post spinal surgery. So it was a lot of the same thing over and over and over. And I became really good at it. And I really, for a period of time, really enjoyed it as well. But I also realized that this wasn't really my thing, that I didn't really want to be doing this in the long run. And so while I was busy like working as a physio, I also started experimenting with different online businesses. And I had a friend who was very much into the online business space. We looked at all of these cool little websites that you could build, thinking that you can derive passive income from it. So, for example, like one of the biggest ideas we had was to run online directories, and it seems like the perfect business to build because you get people to list on your website, they pay you a monthly fee or a yearly fee, and you just advertise them on your site, and you get a lot of money from it. And so we started looking at all these different online business ideas, and maybe in the course of about 2 or 3 years, I registered hundreds of domains that I thought would all become businesses. As it turns out, none of them became businesses because I had shiny object syndrome. I would register the one domain, start working on it, and then almost immediately have another idea, register a new domain, start working on that. And so as a result, almost none of these businesses ever saw the light of day. And at some point, I just got so frustrated because I was like, I'm trying all these things, but nothing is working out. And for the first time, I stopped asking what would make me money. And I started asking, what am I really good at? And what am I really interested in? And the answer that came out of that was, I'm really interested in self development. Like I was really pushing myself to be a better version of myself every single day. So I thought, well, why don't I just do that? Why don't I create a website called Better Man? And it'll really just be me documenting my journey of trying to be a better man every single day. So trying to go to bed at night a better man than when I woke up that morning. And initially, that was all it was supposed to be. It was just me documenting this journey. But then very quickly, I got into podcasting. So this is 2015. So one of the like earliest podcasters, I think, especially in South Africa at the time. And I was interviewing different men about their journey of being a better man. Then I tried different content types to see what would work and resonate with people. And then one day I thought, well, let me start running a daily email because what I actually want is a daily prompt to help me think about how do I live a better life. And this just took off. So within about 3 years, I had a daily mailing list of 18,000 men that subscribed to this. And as the community grew, we also were growing a Facebook community. So we also had 18,000 men as part of the Facebook community. The guy started asking me, can you do events? And as an entrepreneur, you always say yes, and you're going to figure it out. So I said, yes, sure. Like we can host events. So we started hosting an event called Suit Nights, and it was really cool. Like we'd all get dressed up. We had some amazing sponsors involved. And it would be a night just to get together, have a bit of a brotherhood, and think about how you are going to improve how you show up for the people in your life and for yourself. Then they started asking, can you do coaching? And I was like, I don't even know what coaching is, but I'll figure it out. I went and bought every coaching book I could find, read through all the different models, tried to compile them into my own model, and started coaching. And initially, I was not good at it at all, and went through quite a few up and downs where I was like, yeah, I love it, I want to do it, and then no, I don't want to do it at all. And this kept fluctuating back and forth. It was also the time when it felt like every single person woke up in the morning and said, I want to be a coach, and just became a coach. So I wanted to legitimize what I was doing a bit more. And I ended up doing my master's in business and executive coaching. And so, as you can hear, this Better Man chapter in my life was actually huge because it it pulled me in a completely new direction in my life. It opened up a new pathway that led to many different opportunities and possibilities down the line. And it's at the core of it, I think what allowed me to do that was to come back to what was important to me, to what I was intrinsically good at. And when you look at many reinventions, what you often find is that the only thing that is reinvented is the expression of the core. So, what I mean by that is when I've gone through, and you can go and look at on my website to see, or on YouTube to see these videos, when you look at the reinvention of Garmin, uh, Garmin went from being known for in-car navigation devices to doing watches. But what is smart here is that they didn't change everything that they do. They took their core, which is they are very good at GPS technology, and they found a different way of expressing that. And the expression became watches. When you think of Fujifilm, it's the same thing. They used to do film and be one of the biggest film distributors in the world. Today, their main income is through healthcare. And what they did is to go back and ask, well, what are we extremely good at? And the core of what they were good at was that they had this elaborate and sophisticated manufacturing process that used many chemicals that are used in skincare, that had certain processes that could create LCD films. And so they took their core competence and their capabilities and they still expressed it in a different way. And so as you go through reinvention, what you'll find is that the reinvention is often just the application of who you are. So you don't necessarily change the core of who you are and what you are interested in. You find different ways of expressing that into the world through different skills, through different mediums, through different formats, through different services or products. So that's something to always keep in mind. And it's a nice little order to do when you feel stuck, is to just come back and ask yourself, what am I really good at? What am I really interested in? And then to start just rethinking what the expression of that might be. So that was one of the first lessons that I learned when I'm reflecting on this journey. So after doing my master's in executive coaching, I get pulled into working with different teams. And I'm fortunate in that I had the trust with the Better Man community, and many men who were in that community were very successful at what they were doing. And they were willing to pull me into working with their teams. So from very early on, I was working at a level which I really shouldn't have been operating at. I didn't really have the skill or the expertise for it. But it also meant that I was refining my skill at that high level right from the get go. And as I started working with more and more teams, I also got pulled into more and more offsites. And as I got pulled into more and more offsites, I also realized I loved being on stage. And as a result of that, I started pushing more into keynotes. And that's when I ran into a very difficult challenge, a very difficult internal challenge, which you will definitely face when you go through reinvention. And that was something called imposter syndrome. And I'm sure you've heard about it before. I'm sure you've maybe experienced it before. And what I was feeling at the time was, what right do I have as a physiotherapist to get onto stage and to speak to business people about business things? I couldn't reconcile the two. And it was very difficult for me to feel like I belonged on that stage. And I remember a very specific keynote that I delivered one day. I spent a lot of time putting the keynote together. I even worked with a friend of mine who'd been in the keynote speaking industry for a long time, and he approved of the keynote. He liked the keynote. Like all of it, was in his mind to the standard that would be required to deliver a corporate keynote. But I remember just delivering the keynote that day and getting off stage and just thinking like, this is not for me. I don't belong on this stage. And to be very fair, perhaps I didn't belong on that stage. And that's always the thing when you reinvent yourself, is that for a period of time, you might be operating in a space where you don't necessarily belong just yet because you haven't really earned it. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be on that stage. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be pushing into that territory, but it means you should understand that in some ways you are still earning the right to be there. And that's fine, because the only way you get to earn the right to be there is to be there. So it took many reps to get to the point where I really felt comfortable in what I was delivering. But more than that, it took many reps to get to the point where internally I started making the switch that I was no longer a physiotherapist, but that I was now a keynote speaker. And it's something to understand that when you go through change, there's this external process we go through, which is change, but then this internal process, which is transition. And William Bridges speaks about this. He says this internal process goes through three stages. You deal with an ending, which is that you have to say goodbye to who you used to be. Then you go into the wilderness where you are recalibrating your identity. And then you get to the new beginning where now you've really inhabited this new identity. And the mistake we often make is that we don't really spend our time to say goodbye to how things were. We don't close off that chapter in our lives properly. And then we don't spend enough time in the wilderness consciously and intentionally trying to recalibrate who we are. We just go through it in quite a messy kind of way. And so now that I have this framework in my mind, I understand reinvention a lot clearer. And I understand that imposter syndrome is almost always going to be a part of it when you reinvent yourself, but it's also natural and it's also a good thing. It just shows that you are still earning your way into this new character, into this new version of you. And so with enough repetition, at some point I felt like I belonged, but there was still something else that was getting in the way. See, so while I was doing my reps, I ended up deepening my expertise in many different ways. Obviously, I was learning at the speed of light. I was a practitioner, so I was working with executives in a one-on-one coaching setup. I was doing team sessions and workshops. All of this gave me a very good insight into how teams operate. And so, yes, I might not be someone who operates as a leader inside of a business and have that vantage point, but I do have the vantage point of someone who sits outside of business and who works with leaders across many different industries and can see the patterns in their thinking and the challenges in their thinking. And so it's a different vantage point that brings a different level of value. As I continued, I started writing books. I wrote 3 books and then contributed to 4 more. I wrote leadership manuals. I started a podcast, A Good Friend. It became an award-winning podcast for 2 years in a row. And so all of this just to say that I did the work to become this new version of myself. But even if you are the new version of yourself, the people around you might not see you as that new version of yourself. It's quite strange, when we interact with people, we develop a certain understanding of who they are. We put them in a box. And if that person tries to change, it's very difficult for us to see them in a new box. We keep pulling them back into the old box. Even today, 10 years later, when I speak to someone from my physiotherapy days, they still see me in that box. It's very difficult for them to see me as Eric, the author, the keynote speaker, the executive coach. I've just been named one of the top 30 leadership professionals in the world by global gurus. So, that's amazing. But people don't necessarily see you in that new light. It's very difficult for them to make that jump. And so the advice and the lesson that I actually learned around helping to change people's perspectives is to do what I call not go ghost. There's this big movement that says you have to go ghost, like disappear for 6 months and come back reinvented. I actually think you should do the opposite. I think you should flood people with this new commitment that you have. Show them that you are doing the work. Show them that you are progressing. Show them how you are developing your character and developing this new version of yourself. And what that does is that not only holds you accountable and creates commitment from your side to this reinvention, but it also loops them in on the journey and they can see how you are evolving. And so it's not just this jarring one box in the one day, one box in the other day. It is like they buy into the journey. They see that progression of yours. So flood them with the new narrative. Flood them with your reinvention. I see that I'm about to run out on memory space on this SD card. So thank you for tuning in for a session of the hotel room sessions. Like I said, this is more informal, and I want to just kind of document a little bit more of my travels and my journey and my thoughts. And I hope that you'll find some value in it and come along with me for the journey.